Hello and welcome to the director's commentary for episode 4 of the Witching season, They Live Inside Us. My name is Michael Ballif and I wrote and directed this episode, and I'm here just to talk you through kind of the making of the film and some of the different things that we encountered along the way. So the concept for this started actually a few years ago, where I really wanted to do a movie about a writer who goes to a haunted house to kind of put himself into a situation where he can find inspiration for his story. So he brings himself to this haunted location and ultimately tries to use that to come up with his ideas. And, you know, I'd worked on this with my friend David Harris, who's another actor and a writer and a talented dude. And we tried to figure out how to get this thing to work for quite some time. Ultimately, what kept happening is we would reach a point where we felt like the ideas we were coming up with just felt too big. It just felt like it wasn't going to work as a short film. Either that or the ideas became really complex and we found ourselves digging into a deeper and deeper hole that we couldn't get out of. And it was just really kind of tricky. So I kind of set it aside. I also felt like, you know, as a writer, I was kind of new to writing at that time and didn't feel like an idea that was as advanced as this one was something that I could realistically achieve so early on in my experience with writing. So I was kind of feeling a little weird with that. But basically what happened was I kind of revisited it here and there, and eventually I met up with another friend of mine named Carmen Turner, who is also an actor and a writer, and we sat down and went through the outline, potential, you know, hypothetical outline for this thing, and we finally found the right combination of elements to make this thing work as a short. I don't know what it was just something happened and it finally clicked. So, you know, for those out there that have ideas that, you know, you're not getting, it's just not working for you, just hang on to them and revisit those every now and then, because I find that eventually, especially if it sticks for that long, if you're just thinking about an idea you find yourself thinking about something for years, you know, there's probably something to it. So don't give up on it. We found a way to make this work, and it's really cool to see this film completed now as a short after so much time spent kind of brainstorming it. So we have this voice recorder element in the story here, which is really just something to try to get across some exposition. We knew there had to be a moment early on in the film where we let the audience know kind of what's happening, what the backstory is with this house, and why this guy is going here. Because it just felt necessary to establish that there is something that he's searching for, and that he's going to a place that has a legend of these ghosts that live here, that still are said to be in this place. We had to set them up, because if we don't, then how else are we going to understand at the end that he is the ghost? Him and his wife are still haunting the house. So we set this up here, and it was also a deliberate decision to have him enter the house with his hood over his head and kind of keeping him shrouded, so that hopefully at this point the audience doesn't realize that the guy speaking in the voice recorder is the same guy that's breaking into the house. He has his bag here, which is full of his writing equipment. And this house, as you can see, is a really amazing location. A friend of mine owns this place. His name's Jake Waters, and he was really gracious in allowing us to come into the house quite a few different times to shoot the film. And just about every direction you look in the house, it's just amazing. There's either a really awesome decorative artifact or piece of furniture, or just details down to like the wallpaper and the light switches. Everything fits the period of the home. He's gone through and completely renovated the house and done a really amazing job with it. It looks really awesome. Part of the legend is that Jacob Booth murdered his wife at midnight. So it's as if time has kind of stopped still at that moment here in the home. The lightning effects were done with a cheap lightning effects box you can get on eBay, and I think even on Amazon. I'll find a link to that, and I'll put that down below for those that are interested, because I had a hell of a time trying to figure out how to do lightning, and I looked all over the internet to try to find tutorials on how to do it, and there was pretty much no one out there showing how to pull off this kind of effect. So, I mean, basically what it is it's just a little box that you plug in up to 500 watts of light into, and it has a microphone on it where you're supposed to put it next to like a speaker where it plays a thunderstorm soundtrack, and it'll flicker the light based on the intensity of the sound. So what we did is we just rubbed the microphone or blew into the microphone to get it to flash on cue. And Alan Bradford, our gaffer and one of the producers on this, kind of handled the lightning effects, and he did a really great job with that. So here we have the reveal that the man entering the house is the same person who's been speaking this whole time. That was a choice to kind of give the audience a chance to piece things together themselves. This is a story that very much lets the audience figure out what's happening as it goes. So I wanted to give a small taste of that early on, just with that little moment that we had there to get across the exposition and try to set that idea up, whether it's subliminal or, if people pick up on it, I don't know, but to try to kind of start utilizing some of those themes. There's our first glimpse there into this idea that he's there to find inspiration. He's there to relish in the storm and the haunted nature of the house. So the segments that we cut into here are scored by Slasher Dave, who also did the intro score to The Witching season. And I asked him if he wanted to do each of these segments because he has a knack for this really awesome synthetic, nostalgic sound. Randin Graves did the score here for the segments that are happening inside the house. And Randin has scored all of the episodes of The Witching season and always does an amazing job. And these two composers really brought their own expertise into this. And I think the blend of these two scores really makes the film something special. So he notices there the "They Live Inside Us" line written on the page. That's kind of a little clue. Obviously, that's going to make a lot of sense at the end of the film. And I really love the unlimited potential of what this writer could choose here. There's obviously some kind of silly options there on the list, which was kind of fun. We were just sitting around in the room thinking of different monsters we could write down on the page. But it's important, I think, that you can see the unlimited potential of what this guy could do as a writer. I think that's really an exciting part of the movie. It always was something that I wanted to explore. Stevie Dutson plays the Cynthia Booth character, or the girl in the story here that's kind of running from always playing the victim. She did a really amazing job. She's able to capture her emotions visually just through her face, which is something this character had to do, and she plays that fear really well. And I think we're really lucky to have found her and used her in this. So James Morris is the Jacob Booth character, and he also plays each one of the monsters in the story. So he's the slasher, and he's also going to be the clown, and he's the scarecrow. And that was something that we decided to do later on in pre-production. We were going to have different people come in and play cameos, but I thought it was kind of a cool subliminal idea that the writer, who in the end we find out is the monster, was the monster all along. He's always chasing the same victim. I thought that was kind of cool. This shot here with Stevie in the tent was actually a pickup shot. And then we'll cut to about a month earlier right here. We missed a few shots this night. We actually shot the entire slasher scene in one night. But there were a few little things that we missed. We had to come back. The bear mask here was something I wasn't completely sold on at first. I found this mask a year prior to shooting this, and I really liked the look of it. But I was almost going to go with something a little bit more traditional, like a white masked type of killer, kind of like the Halloween or Friday the 13th nod. But I did that in my previous film, Killer on the Loose, so I wanted to do something a little different with this one, and I had that mask already, so I just decided to go with it. And I think it has like kind of a nice menacing look to it. So there we have the rainstorm in the background. That was done just by spraying a hose up above the window and letting it kind of trickle down. It was really kind of a pain to keep up on that with every shot. We needed it to. There's actually a few in here where we didn't do that, And I would have liked to go back and redo them, but we didn't have a chance to. So here's our first taste at some of the horror that's happening in the house. In the original draft of this, none of this stuff existed where he's experiencing hauntings in the house. And that's really what added most of the length to this thing. I think that's really why it's so long. But it felt necessary to show and prove to the audience that this house actually is haunted. Because without it, you have a guy coming into a house and stating that it's haunted, and there's never any evidence of that. You know, he comes in, sits down, gets to work, starts writing his things, and there's no proof. And it actually kind of helps mask the twist, I think, because if without it, I think you're going to start to question it more. But when you see that there is something in the house with him that's haunting him, and we don't really ever get a good look at it, it's possible that it's the ghost of Jacob or Cynthia or whatever it is. There's something spooky going on here. But at the same time, all of these hauntings are actually clues to the twist at the end. This shot is definitely inspired by The Strangers. There's a scene in The Strangers where a very similar shot happens. And I thought it was a good use of sound at that moment because they didn't have like a stinger come in or some sort of a horror typical score there. And I liked kind of playing that up and letting the silence catch you off guard. We used the Nutcracker for the score or for the record song because that was actually the record that was in the record player. Originally, we were going to use Born Free by Andy Williams because it has a really kind of eerie vibe to it. It's got like a really cheerful feeling, but it's so, if you look at the words, it really just, it would match so perfectly opposite of what this film is about. But with copyright reasons, we couldn't do that, so we had to go with the other. And this shot of the phone getting set down as a pickup as well, we missed that shot on the day. And it was important for the audience to know for sure that that was a phone. And also, we're going to come back to a very similar shot where he dials the number on that right from that spot. It's important that he sits back down and continues now with his writing and isn't fazed by what happens in the house. He's there. That's the reason for him being there, is to find that inspiration. So the evil clown is actually the first thing we started shooting. This was done at the, they call it Fiesta Days here in Utah in Spanish Fork, which is where we shot most of the film, with the exception of the house sequence. But yeah, this carnival is something they hold year-round, and we basically just went in rogue with our camera and wanted to keep it really low-key. We had no lights. It was all natural lighting. That's why the scene looks a little dark. We got permission to park in front of this house, and we had tons of people walking by and asking us what we were doing. They're right in this shot here. There's a group of kids about just off to the right of the shot watching, and people, I think, got a kick out of this evil clown running around this carnival. So most of that scene up to this point was shot throughout. We had about 2 hours at this spot. So about an hour and 45 minutes was done there. And then right here, everything inside the carnival, there's just a few shots, but we literally just had to blow through it because the carnival was closing. And there's actually a few takes where we did, where we can see the carnival in the background, but the lights were shut off. This shot is just done in a church parking lot near my house. So we had some takes of this shot here where she's leaving the carnival, and all the rides and everything were shut off, so they didn't work, so we had to use the first takes we did. And then this location is actually the same house that we shot Killer on the Loose, Not Alone, the intro to the Witching Season films, logo. We've used this house for so many different projects. It's kind of our Witching Season headquarters. It's Alan Bradford's house, and him and his family are really cool about letting us come and film here. But yeah, we just set up the tent in front of the house, and we actually did a previous shoot where we rented a tent, but the wind was so intense that we couldn't get any footage. The wind was just blowing like crazy, and there was just no way to get anything that day. That shot there where she looks up is one of the shots from the previous day, so it looks a little different than these ones here. This sign was put together by art director and my wife, Sadie. She did an amazing job with this. It's a really great reveal at this point here where Stevie realizes she's now in the tent. And the shadow there, silhouette, really cool. This Choppy character, I think, was all of our favorites. Most of us found him to be the best of the villains in the story, of the different stories. And we're definitely at some point going to do a spin-off film with the clown. We've got to do it. We had to go back and do the sound for most of these sections over again because on set we didn't have a boom. We really should have. But we had the onboard microphone, which we were able to clean up for certain shots, but a lot of it we had to go through and redo, which is what we've done for most of the episodes of the Witching season so far. This reaction from Stevie here was one of the moments in the shoot where I felt like we were really capturing something magic. It was just quiet, and we just watched her play this reaction up, and you could just hear the crickets in the background, and it was just a really great moment. It's cool to see those as you're working on stuff. Now that jump there makes a lot of people jump, actually. This is one of the moments in the film where I kind of feel like it doesn't work as well as the others because, you know, in each of the drafts that we're seeing this writer fail as a writer. You know, he's whatever causes the story to not work is because of his flaws as a writer. But in that moment, it actually works pretty well. It's a pretty successful scare. It's no fault of the writer. It's just him falling out of the chair. You know, each one of these stories is supposed to break us free with laughter. But this one is a little, it's kind of the exception. And I had a hard time with that in the writing process, but I couldn't figure out another way to do it. So we just kind of went with this. And I think it does work pretty well. To this point, he's basically entirely fed up, and this voice recorder starts to play. And this was something that we added later on in the script as well. I thought it was necessary to introduce the wife character earlier on, and it helps kind of connect these two. It gives them, their relationship becomes stronger because of this scene. Right there's no rain in the shot, which is kind of a bummer. I love this reaction from James here. She's giving him this really sweet message, and his reaction is so offbeat with what's going on. And I think that's just really, really important. It kind of raises some questions for the audience, like why is this, you know, why is he reacting this way? There's a piece of tape on the recorder there because it says Panasonic. I wanted to not show logos as much as we can. These hands were done by Jordan SWENSON. He's a really good makeup artist and producer on previous episodes of the series. All the creatures in the segments were put together by Tyler Russell, who also did the makeup effects in Killer on the Loose. He did a great job with these characters and designing them. So here again we have Jacob laughing off these, you know, these scares that are happening to him in the house. Kind of proving to us, I think, that he's there to find inspiration. He decides to choose the Scarecrow here. That computer right there is actually a different computer. The first one we used was accidentally left on the roof of my car at the end of a late night shoot at about 4 in the morning. So I had driven home, and the laptop was no longer on the roof by the time I got home. So that was kind of sucky, but whatever. Things happen. I really love Dave's score here. It's very solemn and kind of different from the rest of the film, but just coming out of that sad scene that we had just seen, I think it's important to kind of shift the tone. And what's interesting is that Dave had not seen any of the film when doing these scores. He just scored these as individual shorts, basically. And that was just because I didn't have a cut for him in time. This was all really put together quickly. And this was another one-day shoot. We didn't have any time to come in. We actually scheduled this a week before we ended up getting in here, and the night before it had rained, so it was ultra muddy in there, and we couldn't try to pull it off in the mud. It was still pretty muddy when we came back a week later, but I'm sure it would have been horrible. So we get a little bit more action in this sequence as well, which is kind of fun. I always like shooting action. This little scene here where there's a scare was James's idea. A lot of this stuff, as we're going and making a movie, you've got to stay open to new ideas that come your way. And James had the idea of having a little scare there, and I love that little moment. I love this reaction there from Stevie when she turns. That's so great. We were all like getting allergies, and we all had like rashes on our arms, and Stevie had some rashes on her back and all over. It was just kind of horrible. Ha, who's that? I don't know. I don't know who that is. This shot here in the road is a very different location from this scene right here. We shot this a couple weeks apart. Alan Bradford handled the camera for this stuff, and I just smashed pie into my face over and over again. It was pretty fun. I got to eat a shitload of pumpkin pie, which I love. James loves it more than I do, but I like pumpkin pie. I really like James's reactions here. He's just completely fed up. I told James, don't destroy the notebook. Let's just rip one page out. And he just ripped the entire notebook in half, essentially. So, and it ended up working okay. I like how that scene cut together. So he's given up on his script. He's completely erased everything. He's shredded the notebook. And he's now prepped to discover what he's been searching for. That's an actual shot, or an actual photograph of the house that we shot in. It's just hanging on the wall, so we just moved it into this room. The room that we shot, the desk room, is actually downstairs. It's not anywhere upstairs. We made it feel like it was upstairs. We chose this one because it has this really cool desk, and it also allowed us to get the rain a little easier. You get the rain on the window a little easier on the lower level of the house. So he changed the location to Booth House, and once he's done that, suddenly he's in the world of the story. There's a map of Utah. Randin's score coming in here, I really love this theme that he made. It's like this, a lot of this score has this feeling of clocks and time and ticking. And actually he told me later on that most of the score is done in 60 beats per minute, which is a really creative idea, I thought. Just kind of echoing that feeling of time and ticking. And right here we really get to see Stevie's power as an actress. I mean, she could turn those tears on and off. It was pretty cool to watch. Her and James, I mean, I can't say enough about their performances in this. This movie has to be carried by really strong performances. It wouldn't have worked otherwise. And as you can tell, I mean, they're both doing an amazing job in this. So now we get to see the house with the lights on. That was something that came later on as well. Every time, there's so much of this character coming out and coming down the stairs or coming out and looking around. And I wanted each time to feel different, so it just doesn't feel like the same monotonous thing over and over and over again. So, one way to do that was when he first enters the house, he's got his flashlight. And then when he hears the record playing, he comes downstairs with the lantern this time, just to give it a different look and aesthetic so it feels fresh. And then in the third instance here, the lights turn on, which is kind of symbolic for bringing him back to the time when this all happened. The idea here is that this record that's playing is the same song that was playing when he ended up killing his wife, and this is exactly what the home looked like. It was a Halloween night, so there's Halloween decorations up now, and it's bringing him back into the reality of what happened. It's this memory that he's reliving now, this cycle of hell. Jordan Swenson did the gore as well as some of the makeup. He did Stevie's makeup most of the time here, and I thought did a really good job with making her look authentic and creepy. Most of the shoot was really lighthearted and fun, and when we got to these last sections here, we knew that we kind of had to allow things to become a little bit more serious and let people get into that emotional place. It was actually really cool to kind of do that and let these two get in 100%. Not that they weren't earlier, but it was just, as you shoot some of these sections, some of these different pieces of this, a guy sitting here at a keyboard writing, it starts becoming, you start losing your brains a little bit. Randin's score here was done as kind of a tragic, romantic, old school kind of a score, which is something he kind of presented to me and showed me a Bernard Herrmann score from Vertigo that he kind of wanted to, just to give me an idea for what he had in mind. And when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to make sense, if it's going to feel like it is warranted. But it actually, really, I can't see it any other way now. And he's really unleashing this theme that he started setting up earlier on. One of the great things about Randin as a composer is that he looks at the full arc of the film as he scores it. And he sets in little seeds here early on that he'll come back to later on, that he'll let them flourish and grow. And that's a sign of a gifted, talented composer. James's reaction here just dries up and goes to nothing, just the absence of emotion at that point. The phone dropping on the ground was a pickup as well. We forgot to get that on the day. So we came back and shot that. Now he returns to the desk where the laptop is gone, because it wouldn't make any sense for a laptop to exist 30 years ago. We're essentially now 30 years earlier. So we're somewhere in the 80s. That would be 86, right? I love how the scene turned out. James actually had the idea of having Stevie come up and come over his shoulder, which kind of echoes the scene that we saw earlier where the hands come over the shoulder. And the performances in this moment are true cinematic magic, I think. Just sitting there watching these two do this, it felt like we had finally reached the true essence of the film. And you could just see it as you're sitting there filming it. It's just happening. Whatever it was, it's real magic that happens when you're making a film. There's these little moments that happen. And he is writing what we found earlier in the film. It now makes sense. And originally that was where the film ended. And I felt like it was leaving us with a feeling that I didn't want this movie to have. I wanted to go there, but I didn't want to leave you with that. I wanted the point of the movie, and the last thing that we remember is that this is a cycle, and this thing is going to repeat now. And to kind of try to bring it back to not necessarily a positive note, but more of an upbeat note. So I wanted to focus on that, refocus the film in that way. So we came back and actually shot these shots of the house about a week before the movie was done, and just grabbed them real quick. And that's Jake Waters opening the door there. Jake Waters, who owns the house, we had him do that, and I'm really glad that he's the person opening the door there. That's kind of cool. And there we have it. That's They Live Inside Us. It's been a real pleasure working with everyone that was involved with this film. It couldn't have been done without everyone's contributions to it. If you have an idea, something that you're trying to come up with that you're just not quite getting and it's sticking with you for quite some time, don't give up on it. Just let it simmer. It'll figure its way out. That's what this one certainly did. And Drew Bartholomew's cover here of Don't Fear the Reaper, which is one of my favorite songs. He really nailed it and did a really cool job. So, again, thank you for watching and always supporting us with our projects. And stay tuned for more coming from us here soon.